Hello and welcome back to revise GCSEhistory.co.uk. The video we're going to be doing today is the first video for the American West topic, and the first little subtopic of the American West is the Plains Indians. So this video comes under the topic the Plains Indians, and this is the first video in this topic. And in this video today we're going to be looking at the Great Plains. What were they and where were they located? The Great Plains. So this map here shows the 50 states that comprise America today. So you may be familiar with some of these states: Kansas, Missouri, Texas, California, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Ohio, Illinois, Iowa. There we are, all those states that comprise America today. So there's 50 states in America. There's 50 states in America today. Just a bit of background, really, to the topic. And these states fill the entire country from the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast and beyond. So fill the entire country, the entire of the United States. And these 50 states have been acquired by war, money, and circumstance. So there's a bit of background into America today. So, the Great Plains. Where were the Great Plains? This map here sort of shows where the Great Plains were, and I'm just going to sort of draw this line down here. Whoops, bit of a wiggly line, but never mind. The Great Plains. And I'm going to draw this line just down there. So the Great Plains were in this space between these between these pink lines. They were the Great Plains, or we sometimes just call them the Plains. So the plains were in America between the Rocky Mountains, this edge here next to this pink line there, the Rocky, not all of this area, but there we are, they're the Rocky Mountains, to the west of the Great Plains, and also here we've got California and Oregon, but there are the Rocky Mountains. And the eastern boundary of the Great Plains is this river here that I've just drawn down, and that's the Mississippi River. And that is, the plains lie between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. So that is what we mean when we talk about the Great Plains. Okay, so what were the Great Plains? We've just had a look at the map, but let's have a look at some key details you need to be aware of. So the region is between the western Rocky Mountains and the eastern Mississippi River. The Great Plains were lived on by the Plains Indians. We're going to look at these more in other videos in this topic and a bit later on in this video today. To the early travellers, the Great Plains were seen as the Great American Desert. That's what they called the Great Plains, the Great American Desert. We're going to look at why they called it that in a minute. So, when they drew a map of the USA, they would label the Great Plains the Great American Desert. And it was many years before outsiders began to see the farming potential of the Great Plains. They just saw them as a useless desert. In the 1830s, outsiders, such as early travellers, when we say outsiders, we really mean non-Indians, non-Native Americans. By early travellers, we're talking about white Americans really. In the 1830s, these outsiders could only see the problems, and the problems were harsh weather, lack of trees, strong prairie winds, and the absence of water. We're going to be looking at these problems a bit later on in this video in more detail. So the Plains Indians had a different view to this, obviously. They weren't farmers but were hunters, so the plains were perfect for a hunter's way of life. But they couldn't grow anything, but they could hunt. So, who were the Plains Indians? Well, Plains Indians is a term used to cover the many different nations of the Native Americans. We're not talking about Indian people, we're talking about Native Americans when we say Plains Indians. For example, some different nations are the Sioux and the Cheyenne, who lived on the Great Plains. And the Plains Indians is a name given to Native Americans by foreign explorers, and it's not a name that these people would use to describe themselves today. So they wouldn't say we're the Plains Indians. Why are they called Indians and not Americans? Well, when Columbus reached America in 1492, he thought he'd reached India, but he'd actually reached America. He soon realised that he hadn't reached India and he'd actually discovered America, but he decided to call the people who lived there the Indians anyway. Crazy. So, what were the Great Plains like to live on? What were they like geographically? So the landscape. In 1840, it was a region of gently rolling grasslands and slow-flowing rivers. The Black Hills were in the northern plains, and these were wooded hills surrounded by areas of where soft rock had eroded into shapes. Climate, there was a very extreme climate. Strong winds blew all year round. In the winter, winds brought cold blizzards and freezing cold weather. In summer, the winds were very hot and they dried up the land and rivers. Wildlife, there was a variety of animals and birds that lived on the Great Plains, and they were well adapted. They were well adapted for living there. Deer, rabbits, herds of buffalo, hawks and eagles are a few examples of the wildlife that existed on the Great Plains. Vegetation. In the west, near the Rocky Mountains, or the Rockies, the grass was short. Towards the east, it grew taller, and this was called the prairie grass. In some river valleys and near the Mississippi River, there was woodland. This was quite scarce. The land was much drier in the south of the Great Plains, and the grass was replaced by semi-desert plants. That's part of the reason why it's called the Great American Desert. Okay. So, the Plains Indians, they were the people who lived on the plains. They were well adapted for doing so. They were hunters that followed herds of buffalo as they moved across the plains, and the region was not a desert to them. So they hunted buffalo and followed them on their migrations across the plains. In the summer, the Plains Indians moved northwards, away from the scorching heat, and in winter they camped in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, where they were sheltered from wind-driven blizzards. Outsiders thought they were nomads because they didn't settle in one place, but I think the Plains Indians would disagree with this because they'd say, we do settle in one place, and that one place is the Great Plains. So, just to summarise this little bit on the Plains Indians, they were well adapted. They moved to hunt buffalo, and they also move with weather. So they moved around based on the seasons, etc. So they move with the weather. There are 2 summary points on that paragraph there. Alright, so I've actually covered all the knowledge we need to go over for this video today. Here are 4 quick questions based on the content of today's video. You might want to pause the video here and have a go at the questions yourself, remembering the key facts from this video. If not, carry on watching and we'll do the answers together. Alright, so the answers. Question 1, where are the Great Plains located? Well, they are between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. So they're between the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. Question 2, why did early travellers call the plains the Great American Desert? They wouldn't be able to farm. Due to lack of water, strong winds, etc. Tough farming land, so they didn't see the farming potential. How did the strong winds on the plains change with the seasons? Well, in winter they brought blizzards and freezing cold weather, and in summer they brought scorching hot heat. And it was very unpleasant. They blew all year round. Why are the Native Americans called the Plains Indians? Columbus thought he'd reached India when he discovered America. Alright, so there are the answers to the quiz questions for this video today. Thank you for watching, and if you found it useful, please head over to the website reviseGCSEhistory.co.uk, where you can view more revision videos and also a comprehensive range of revision resources for your GCSE history course. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again very soon.